Well, my name is Norman Thurrell. I was born in Moss Side, Manchester, 1944 August. I've got brief memories of what happened while I was young. One of the things was we was shown ration books where we could get sweets, which you would do as a child. The other thing was everything was rationed. Food, clothing, so you had to have the ration books and register with a shop to say that you were getting, products from that place. The other things were, I can remember the houses all had blackout curtains, so you lived in the dark most of the time. Say it was towards the tail end of the war. I can remember going down Lloyd Street in Moss Side near Main Road's football ground, and the air raid siren went off, and because the air raid shelter was quite a distance from where we were taken into a shop, the back of the shop, by the owners, and we stayed there until the siren went off again to say that it was the all clear. Things were very limited when you were young. You got toys once a year, or possibly twice a year, Christmas time and your birthday, and they were made to last for the full year. If you broke anything, that was it. You didn't get anything else. Same with clothes. Clothes were limited. A lot of clothes in those days were knitted by your parents or your grandparents. Weeks, you got your new outfit where you could wear that as the week walks, which everybody looked forward to. Used to go to the Catholic walks and the Italian walks, Protestant walks, get there for about 5 o'clock in the morning, so that you get a good viewpoint. And by the time the parade was on, you were tired, you were ready for falling asleep. After that, those clothes lasted you for your best, Sunday best, and then after that it was brought down so you wore them for school. And that was it for the year. You didn't get any other clothes because people just couldn't afford it. No things like fruit and veg and things like that, because they were in very short supply because of the boats being targeted by submarines. So you didn't get any fruit from abroad. And you used to make things. My mother used to make jams and things like that from preservatives, so you did get vitamins and protein, milk. Used to get orange juice at school and milk at school, and that was free, and I used to look forward to that. I had an uncle that was in the RAF. We didn't see anything of him. I was told about him, but I never saw my uncle, so all I can remember is within the family they had a report that he was missing in action, and that was the last I ever heard of him. My next door neighbours had 2 sons in the RAF, and they used to come home from, he was actually based at, one of them was based at Ringway, which is Manchester Airport, but it was an RAF base at the time. And then the other one was abroad. I think he was somewhere like Malta, somewhere around there. Most of my family were either in engineering, so they were dedicated to working in factories, or they were produce things, so they were tied up. They weren't put in the forces at all. They were kept in, to look after the things at home. Well, this is a ration book that everybody was issued in the war. Every individual had a ration book. That's to make sure that you couldn't claim for food or clothing that you weren't entitled to. This ration book here, I found, well, my mother gave it me a few years ago before she died, and it's just to record where we used to get produce from: milk, eggs, cheese, butter, meat, and then there were separate ration books for clothing that you could only get every so often throughout the year. Yeah, this is a little part of history. At the top of the page is where you got meat from, and fortunately my grandfather had the butcher's shop, the local butcher's shop, so we were able to get a little bit extra meat than average Joe in the street, and he always used to make sure there was a little bit put to one side for us. The rest of the list was where my mother used to work part-time in the shop, and you had to register with those for such as cheese, butter, milk, where you get 2 ounces of butter, an ounce of cheese and things like that. There's no such things as fruit, because everything was stopped, the embargo, you know. So that was it basically. We were pretty lucky. All the tea that was issued used to come in cardboard drums, and used to be measured out. So you know, you've got the exact measurement of tea, sugar, butter, anything like that. And they're all put in packs. The sugar was put in purple packages, you know, purple. All ration books were given, say, to individual people in the family. There was clothing ration books also. People used to try and claim for clothing and food for people that didn't exist in the war, just to try and get that little bit extra. There used to be illegitimate children. There used to be children that were invented just to try and get some more food or clothing. But generally, this was the old idea of the ration book, to make sure everything was given out fairly. Well, to make sure that nobody was fiddling the system, they used to cut out the coupons out of the ration book every time they got produce. So at the end of the book had to be surrendered back to the Ministry of Food, and you were issued with a new book. Sometimes you had to wait a couple of weeks for it to happen, so you had to manage on the food you had and the clothes that you had until the new book was issued. Well, I can remember as a child that we were issued with gas masks in little boxes. If you were a baby, it used to be a cover that used to go over the pram so that the baby could breathe, but not have it directly on the face. But as you grew up as a child, you used to have a box with a piece of string round your neck, and if anything happened, you could pull the gas mask out of the box and put it on your face. And I can remember my dad he was designated the warden of the street, and he used to have a big rattle, and I don't know if people remember those, and it was what they used to use later on in years after at the football matches, these rattles, and the rattle was a warning to the people of the street that there was an air raid about to take place, and he could have this rattle. And we also had a big pair of ladders in the backyard, and that was for incendiary bombs, so that we could get the ladders, run down the street with them, put them up and try and put this incendiary bomb out on the roof or something like that.